Hello everyone, my name is Toni and welcome to the Cooking Dome. Today we are going to be making this delicious thin crust Chicago style inspired pizza. It is meaty, cheesy, crispy, crackery and sweet, and it's relatively easy to make, so grab your aprons and here we go. For the ingredients we are going to be using a mixture of bread flour and semolina flour, and we are also going to need some water, salt, sugar, yeast and olive oil. The measurements are going to all be in the video description. So now let's make the dough. First, grab a bowl and add all of the ingredients except for the flour. So the water, salt, sugar, yeast and olive oil. Then mix it well until all the salt, sugar and yeast granules are dissolved. We are using some semolina flour in the dough to increase the crunchiness of the final product, and a high amount of oil to help with the browning. And now it's time to add the flour mixture. First, start mixing with a spatula until almost all the liquid has been absorbed. Now, because this is a relatively low hydration dough, we are going to ditch the spatula and work it with our hands. We mix well until there is no more flour in the bowl. Then we remove the dough from the bowl and put it on the working bench and start kneading. We are going to knead it for about 5 to 6 minutes until it has a relatively smooth surface. If you have a stand mixer, use it for about the same time. I am kneading the dough by folding it with the left hand and pushing it with the palm of my right hand. But you can use any kneading method you want. I am doing it this way because I find it is a little bit faster this way for me. After you are done, put it back in the bowl, cover it and let it rest 30 minutes at room temperature. After it has rested, we are going to fold it one time before bulk fermentation. Grab it from the bowl, then flip it upside down, flatten it a little bit, then grab each corner and fold it in the middle until you have gone all around the dough and it has a smooth surface. Then put it back in the bowl and let it proof until doubled. For me it took around an hour. For you it may take a little bit longer or a little bit less, depending on the temperature in your home. Now let's make the pizza balls. Divide the dough into roughly 230 grams pieces. Then grab one of them and do the same thing that we did before when we folded the dough. Fold all the corners in the middle, flip around and tow it into a bowl. Then do the same thing for the other one. After you are done, rest them for 10 minutes loosely covered so it is easier to stretch. To stretch the pizza, we are going to need some semolina flour and a rolling pin. We are using semolina flour because it is harder for the dough to absorb, as opposed to plain flour, because we don't want to change the hydration of the dough. Now start rolling and turning, being mindful to make it as round as possible and about 3 mm thick, and the same thickness all around. Then grab the pizza pan and measure it. If it is a little bit larger, don't worry, just cut around the pizza pan. Then put the pan down, lay a sheet of parchment on it and put the dough on top. Then do the same thing for the other one. And now the interesting part of this recipe. We put them in the fridge just like that, open, for about 6 to 24 hours. You do this to dry the dough and increase the crispiness of the dough and also build flavors. The next day, before we pull the dough out of the fridge, let's start preparing the toppings. First, the tomato sauce. Grab an onion, cut it in half and dice it, then put it in a saucepan with a tablespoon of olive oil on medium heat and a pinch of salt. Then sweat them down. In the meantime, grab a couple of garlic, cloves, and dice them also. If you like the sauce very garlicky, and don't mind staying away from vampires, use more. Add them to the onions and fry them until fragrant. Then add a can of diced tomatoes and season it with salt, pepper, sweet paprika and a teaspoon of sugar. Put it back on the stove on medium for about 30 minutes, stirring occasionally. After it has reduced, it is time to blend it. Blend it until it is smooth but has a little texture, like in the video. Now it's time for the homemade spicy sausage. I am using a pound or half a kilo of pork shoulder, and I am seasoning it with a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of sugar, a teaspoon of dried oregano, a teaspoon of sweet paprika, half teaspoon cayenne pepper, and a teaspoon of cracked black pepper, of course. Also a grated clove of garlic. And the last ingredient for some fragrance, a splash of white wine. Then wet your hand and start mixing. You should wet your hand because if you don't, the mixture it's going to stick. Mix well until all the ingredients are incorporated and the sausage is ready. Now let's move on to the cheese. I'm using half mozzarella and half Gouda cheese, about 100 grams each for 2 pizzas. Then I'm also using some grated Parmigiano Reggiano for a salty kick and some red onions. Now let's get the dough from the fridge. As you can see, it has dried up nicely and that is what we want. It is time to put the pie on the pizza pan. Lay it out flat on the pan and poke some holes with a fork. We do this to avoid the dough from puffing up. After you do that, it is time to build the pizza. First we start with the sauce. Make sure you get the sauce all the way to the edge. Now we add the cheese mix all over. And on top of that, we sprinkle some Parmigiano Reggiano and we move on to the sausage. Make some balls about 2 cm in diameter and place them however you want on top of your pizza. At the end, add some onions and a little bit of olive oil to caramelize the onions and meat, then off to the oven. Open the door. Open the door and put it on the bottom of the oven and leave it there for about 3 to 4 minutes. Enough time for the bottom to crisp up a little bit. Then take it out and remove the pizza from the pan and put it on a peel and get it back at the bottom. Remember, this pizza should be overcooked but not burned. We want to maximize the crispiness. So leave it there for another 3 to 5 minutes and then put it on the top rack to caramelize the onions and the meat and brown the cheese a little. Now all it's left to do is serve by cutting it into squares as is per tradition in Chicago pizzerias. Now grab a beer and enjoy this amazing pizza. If you like this video, leave a like and subscribe, and if you don't, there is a button for that too. Let me know in the comments if you try it and if you have any suggestions for other recipes. See you on the next one.